Kare Mwapenduka and welcome to Africa Good Morning, the show where we keep you up to date with the latest news in Africa and beyond. My name is Glenna Rashipura, joined by Diana Master. Good morning.
Good morning, how are you?
I'm quite well, although today does feel like a Monday.
That's only because you were not there yesterday.
Yes,
it feels like
I was off yesterday, yeah. So now I'm like, oh, why does a Tuesday feel like a Monday?
You know, in all honesty, for me, the week feels like it's gone on for a month. Like, you know, it feels like we've been
in this forever.
It's been forever. I've been in this week for the last 3 weeks.
And we just started. We just started the month.
We just started the month, the week, everything. But we move. Let's get into what you can expect in today's broadcast. Kenyan school closed after student's death. UN extremely worried about Rwanda asylum plan. Uganda will send soldiers to Moscow to defend Putin if need be. And this is according to the president's son. Also going to be crossing over to Zambia to speak to Mr. Mike Sichula, who will keep us updated with the latest news that side. Stick around, top stories coming up after this.
Ohole So Nice is an entertainment show brought to you by the youth for the youth. This is a dating show that allows individuals to participate and be their own true selves. If you would like to feature your brand or campaign on this platform, contact zone@synergy.com.na.
You're still watching Africa Good Morning. Let's get into your top stories. Kenyan school closed after student's death. A school in Western Kenya has been closed indefinitely after two students died of what is suspected to be a case of suspected food and water poisoning. Public health officials on Monday shut down Mukumu Girls High School in Kagemaga County after over 100 students were last week hospitalized with abdominal pains and diarrhea. Initial findings indicated the learners may have suffered food or water poisoning. Samples were collected and sent to the Kenya Medical Research Institute for analysis, local media reported. Parents flocked to the school to collect their children after learning of the death of the two students.
UN extremely worried about Rwanda asylum plan. The UN Human Rights Office says it's still extremely worried about the impact of the UK's government plans to send some migrants to Rwanda if they arrive in the UK through illegal routes. UK Home Secretary Suella Braverman has insisted Rwanda is a safe country for migrants. She said on Sunday that she believed the Rwanda policy would have a significant deterrent effect so that people would stop making the journey across the channel to the UK. But the UN Human Rights Office said assessments done by the UN Refugee Agency showed that the asylum system in Rwanda was not robust enough. There are also concerns about respect for the right to freedom of assembly and freedom of expression in Rwanda. Those concerns do remain today. Spokesperson Ravina Shamdasani told the BBC's Newsday program, "We have a lot of evidence of how these plans offshore asylum facilities go wrong," she added.
Uganda will send soldiers to Moscow to defend Putin if need be, the president's son said. The son of Ugandan leader Yoweri Museveni, Muhoozi Kainerugaba, said he would send Ugandan troops to defend Moscow in case of an imperialist threat. "Call me Putinist if you want. We, Uganda, should send soldiers to defend Moscow if ever it was threatened by imperialists," he wrote on Twitter. "The West is wasting its time with useless pro-Ukrainian propaganda," added the president's son, a staunch supporter of Vladimir Putin. He also announced on Thursday the creation of a television and radio channel bearing his brand, MK. Kainerugaba, who is 48, is used to making controversial statements on Twitter, announced this month his candidacy for the 2026 presidential election. On October 18, 2022, Yoweri Museveni had declared that his only son, he also has 3 daughters, would no longer tweet about the country's affairs after a series of polemical tweets in early October in which he had notably threatened to invade Kenya. Uganda has abstained from UN votes on the Ukrainian conflict, including one in February on the first anniversary of the Russian invasion of Ukraine, which called on Moscow to withdraw its troops from the country. In July, during a tour of Africa by Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov, Kainerugaba said, referring to Russia, "How can we be against someone who has never hurt us?"
And now moving over to South Africa, wind project near Addo Elephant Park riles up activists. Plans to build wind farms next to South African National Park have riled wildlife activists who worry the turbines will ruin the landscape and impact elephants. More than 200 turbines are slated to be erected in the vicinity of the Addo Elephant National Park in the country's south after the Environment Ministry dismissed a legal bid to block the project last year. The decision has upset tour operators and environmental campaigners, including William Folds, a wildlife vet who runs a lodge in the area, and complains the farms risk degrading the wild experience of going on a safari. "It's catastrophic," he told AFP. "No one is saying we are against wind farms, but if you place them in an area of high environmental value and high ecotourism value, you are actually damaging the local environment and the people that live there." With solar, wind is seen as key to efforts by Africa's most industrialized economy to wean itself of coal, which is currently burnt to generate about 80% of the country's electricity. The Environment Ministry said authorization to build the wind farms was given upon the completion of an environmental impact assessment, but critics of the plan are not convinced. Some have raised concerns that noise from the turbines might disturb the about 600 elephants living in the park who communicate via low-frequency infrasounds.
Swinging back to East Africa, Kenya prosecutor drops charges against MPs over anti-government protests. Kenya's top prosecutor on Monday dropped charges against 4 lawmakers over anti-government protests a day after opposition leader Raila Odinga suspended the demonstrations, their lawyer said. Odinga said on Sunday he was ready for talks with President William Ruto as long as authorities halted arrests and prosecutions connected to the protests, among other conditions. The case has been withdrawn for the sake of peace, dialogue and justice between the accused persons and the state, lawyer Danstan Omari told Reuters. The 4 opposition lawmakers, who included the leaders of Odinga's faction in both houses of parliament, were arrested and charged with unlawful assembly in late March, then released on bail. Thousands took part in 3 marches over the past 2 weeks against high living costs and alleged fraud in last year's vote. All turned violent, and a 4th rally had been planned for Monday.
And now bringing us to the end of our top stories in Mozambique, cholera vaccine is safe and effective. Mozambique's Deputy Health Minister Ilesh Jani on Thursday guaranteed that the vaccine against cholera currently being administered in parts of central Mozambique is effective and safe. Speaking in Quelimane, capital of Zambezia province, at the official ceremony marking the start of the mass vaccination campaign against cholera, Jani explained that the vaccine has been administered successfully in other parts of the country, resulting in a reduction in the number of cases. This is a vaccine that we used after Cyclone Idai in Sofala province in 2019, Jani recalled, and at that time when we used this vaccine, we ended the cholera epidemic in Sofala. We also used it after Cyclone Kenneth in Cabo Delgado, he added. There too, after we used the vaccine, the cholera ended. This time we used it in Niassa province, which was facing great problems with cholera, but with the use of the vaccine, the epidemic in Niassa is disappearing, Jani continued. So it's important to vaccinate the largest possible number of people. We want everybody in Quelimane to be vaccinated to take this vaccine against cholera. For his part, the representative of the World Health Organization, Nubai Salu, told the ceremony that although the vaccine against cholera is effective, it is important to maintain hygiene measures. The vaccine in itself will not work miracles, he said. It is one of the components of cholera prevention. We must follow the other measures that we're hearing about in the messages being publicized here. Salu explained that the vaccine is taken in 2 doses.
14 Seventh-day Adventist Church members drowned. We take a look at this story after the break when we cross over to Zambia.
The Regional Review brings you news, views, and interviews from NMH correspondents from across the country. If you would like to feature your brand or campaign on this platform, contact regional@synergy.com.na.
Now, Zambia and the United States government have partnered to facilitate the increase in trade and investments between the two countries. Here to tell us more is Mr. Mike Sichula. Good morning, Mr. Sichula. Please take it away.
Thank you, Africa. Good morning. Yes, following the visit of Vice President of the United States, Kamala Harris, and the United States of America have signed a memorandum of understanding for the development and implementation of strategic patriotic priority commercial projects in Zambia. Speaking during the signing ceremony, Commerce Minister Chipoka Mlenga said the MOU is a milestone aimed at promoting economic diplomacy and strengthening economic ties through trade and investment. Mr. Mlenga said the U.S. is going to partner with Zambia through provision of technology to help the country enhance value addition. There in the picture is the Vice President of America when she toured one of the farms that has employed technology in its agriculture production. So this is one of the few engagements that Zambia and the United States did when she visited Zambia. And from this ongoing, the ambassador to Zambia, Michael Gongalas, praised Zambia for implementing bold steps and policies to enhance economic growth.
Now, in your next story, 10,000 students at the University of Zambia will start receiving meal allowances after the 14th of April 2023, following the reintroduction of the fund. This is definitely a positive development. Can you get into this story?
Yes, you have rightly put it. This is a positive development for students at the University of Zambia. During the previous administration, meal allowances were scrapped off. The idea of scrapping off meal allowances for students at the UNZA was aimed at ensuring that other students in colleges that are government-owned also participated in the receiving of meal allowances. So according to the Higher Education Loans and Scholarship Board Senior Corporate Communications Officer, Chisero Rwanda, says the over 10,000 students under the Students' Loan and UNZA will start receiving their meal allowances after registering with the Loans Board. She did say that the registration started on 20th March, and after April 14th, all those students that would have registered will start receiving their meal allowances. She said that students that would not have registered by the stated date will only be paid their meal allowances after they complete the registration process, which takes a little bit of time. And considering that the number we are talking about over 10,000 students, and the board also caters for the Copperbelt University, so there's a high volume of students queuing up to have their names registered and captured for the receiving of meal allowances.
All right, now, Mr. Mike Sichula, on a rather sad note, 14 Seventh-day Adventist church members who drowned at Lake Bangwelu on Friday last week. Please give us the details. What went wrong?
This is a very sad development. The vessel, the boat that was involved in this accident on Lake Bangwelu was carrying more than its capacity. There were 44 people on board, and according to information that has been provided, that was over its normal capacity. So the 14th SDA church members who drowned on Friday last week were put to rest yesterday. This follows the retrieval of 13 bodies by the Zambia Army Marines, community members, and the police. So the church has this is not the first time that this thing is happening to the SDA church. About some few years ago, not too long ago, there was an accident that happened on the Lake Kariba, where a number of youths belonging to the SDA church drowned. This is after they broke curfew and went to play into the Lake Kariba, and unfortunately some of them drowned and died. So there hasn't been any official government statement on what on what the government is going to do, but the church on its own, they have said that all church activities will continue despite this accident, because this is just an accident that happened according to them. It will not deter the church from conducting church activities, even during in areas where they have to cross the river and so on and so forth.
This is truly puzzling, considering the death of 14 members, that the church will continue with church activities. Now, moving on to your next story, we understand that 2 men accused of abducting 13 young women will undergo medical examination before taking a plea in the High Court. Can you expand on this story?
Yes, this is a story that did disturb a number of Zambians last year, where 13 girls were abducted in unclear circumstances, and they were kept in a house in one of the residential areas in Lusaka for more than a month, with minimal communication with their family members, where the 2 who are in the picture were demanding money and other things. So when because just a few weeks ago there was a story that emerged that did state that the 2 had actually escaped from lawful custody, but unfortunately the story was disputed by the prison authorities. So when they appeared in court yesterday, they have been one of their lawyers representing has asked the court that the 2 should go mental examination before they take plea in the High Court. This is to ascertain whether James Warrior, 22, and Matthews Skaonga, also 22, are mentally fit to attend trial. The court has also ordered that Warrior be referred for medical examinations to determine the fitness to attend trial, given the injuries he sustained on his back when he attempted to escape from prison.
This is truly, truly disturbing, but we'll be keeping an eye on the situation, Mr. Sichula, and we expect that you give us an update to see whether or not they are fit to stand trial and whether or not justice will be served. Thank you so much for bringing us the latest news on the ground in Zambia.
Thank you so much, Africa. Good morning.
Now let's take a look at the weather predictions before we come back with our economic news.
Let's take a look at our economic news. SARS collects more than 2 trillion rands, but VAT refunds surged by almost 22%. The South African Revenue Service collected just over 2 trillion rands in gross tax revenues over the past year, a 9.7% increase from the 2021 to 2022 tax year. The gross revenues were 123 billion rands, above what the finance minister estimated in the 2022 budget speech. This was the first time that SARS exceeded the 2 trillion rand gross tax revenue mark, but it was 5 billion rands below SARS' own revised estimate. Basically, for all intents and purposes, we have achieved what the finance minister set us out to achieve, said SARS Commissioner Edward Kiswetter. Total tax refunds surged by almost 19% to more than 381 billion rands, with value-added tax refunds increasing by almost 22% to 319 billion rands.
Now, oil prices soar as producers unveil shock output cut. Oil prices soared on Monday after top producers unveiled a shock output cut of more than 1 million barrels per day, while equities mostly rose after data showed US and European inflation eased further last month. However, the decision by the OPEC Plus cartel fanned concerns about a fresh spike in prices that put pressure on central banks on central banks to push interest rates higher. Both main crude contracts jumped around 8% at one point following the cut by Saudi Arabia, Iraq, the United Arab Emirates, Kuwait, Algeria and Oman, which was the biggest since the group slashed 2 million barrels per day in October. It came on top of a Russian decision to extend a cut of 500,000 barrels per day and in spite of US calls to increase production.
That's the end of our economic news. We now take a look at our sports news.
Good day, everyone. Time for international sports news, starting off with soccer news first. It was not a good weekend for two coaches in the English Premier League because they were sacked after results over the weekend. That's the coaches of Chelsea and also of Leicester City. First, the coach of Chelsea, that is Graham Potter. He lost his position. They lost at home, that is Chelsea, against Aston Villa by 2-0 over the weekend, and it was their 11th loss in 31 games. So Graham Potter no more the coach of Chelsea. The two assistant coaches will continue coaching for the rest of the season. That includes a quarter-final game, important game against Real Madrid in the Champions League, also 10 league games that's left for the season for Chelsea. Also, Leicester City coach, that is Brendan Rodgers, he's out of his position. They are battling at the moment in the relegation zone and also lost over the weekend, and he was also sacked by the management of Leicester City. It was Rodgers that started in February in 2019 already as coach of Leicester City, had good results, and he actually had coached them to a FA Cup win. That was in 2021. Moving on to golf news, and over the weekend it was the Valera Texas Open that was concluded. Corey Connors of Canada winning that, the second time he won it in 5 years. More important for him, he moves up to number 28 in the world rankings, up from number 40. And it is the rest of the world rankings. It is still Scotty Scheffler, the world number 1. And some players that moved up, Max Homa, he is now number 5. He's from the United States. And also Justin Thomas is back in the top 10 in 10th position. Coming up this week, a much anticipated Masters golf tournament that will start on Thursday. And news from that tournament is that Tiger Woods confirmed that he will play in the tournament. So that is big news for the Masters. And also there's 18 players of the Live Golf Breakaway League that will play. And some of them players showing good form. One of them is Brooks Koepka that won the Live Golf Initiative tournament in Florida over the weekend. And he will also tee up in the Masters starting on Thursday, finishing on Sunday. Continuing international sports news with MotoGP news, it was the Argentinian MotoGP over the weekend. The winner there, Marco Bezzecchi, he is from Italy. A significant win for him, his first win in a MotoGP ever, and he's also leading the overall point standing after 2 races with 50 points. Second place, Francesco Bagnaia, that he won the first one in Portugal. He's on 41 points, and then lower down in 8th position, Southern African interest Brad Binder on his KTM. He is on 22 points. Both Bezzecchi and also Bagnaia, they're driving on Bugatti motorcycles. The next one will be the Grand Prix of the Americas. That will be this coming weekend. So lots of action on the MotoGP circuit at the moment. Also, cycling news. It was the Tour de Flanders that concluded. The winner there, Tadej Pogačar, he's definitely the informed cyclist at the moment, and he's from Slovenia. He won the Tour de Flanders. Second was Mathieu van der Poel, and the third position, Mats Petersen. To close off today's international sports news, it's the European Champions Cup quarterfinals have been determined. The 8 teams that play in that, it will be this coming weekend. On Friday, it will be Leinster that play home against Leicester Tigers. Then on Saturday, 2 games, it will be Toulon that will host the Chelsea Sharks, and that game is going to be played in France. And then also in England, it will be the Exeter Chiefs. They will host the Stormers. The game on Sunday will be La Rochelle, also a French team that will host Saracens from England. That's international sports news for today. Hope you have a great day and a great week, and we talk again tomorrow. Goodbye.
That was the sports package with Ari Hohad. Now let's take a look at the highlights from earlier's show. Kenyan school closed after student's death. UN extremely worried about Rwanda asylum plan. Uganda will send soldiers to Moscow to defend Putin if need be, and this is according to the president's son. SARS collects more than 2 trillion rand, but VAT refunds surged by almost 22%.
And with that, we've come to the end of our show. Do remember that Africa Good Morning is repeated on our 1up2 website and our DSTV channel 285 and our GoTV channel 94 between 8:30 and 9 a.m. every weekday. I am Glenora Shipura.
And I am Diana Master. Until tomorrow, wishing you a lovely Tuesday ahead.